multiclassing with the Magus. I mentioned this a couple parts ago, that the Magus is very, very pliable. Because it's kind of a caster, and a lot of what the Magus is solved in its framework and is spell list. The feats it has are leaning more utility. There isn't like any crazy numeric advantage feat. You aren't locked into anything. It's mostly like, oh, fuse staff makes using a staff with an inexorable iron easier. There's very few that are required, like emergency charge. Always sparkling charge, get it. But then like the level 10 ones are like, yeah, sparkling charge is good, but it's not necessary. So yeah, there's a lot of space in the Magus for you to go and pick up multi-class feats. So we got a couple to go over here, and I'm gonna do the class archetypes first, and then the not class archetypes. So, Archetypes and Pathfinder, they are feats that you can pick up typically at 2, but there are some that have 4 or 6 or later. You pick up the dedication, and you get some sort of benefit out of it. I'm using Archives of Nethys again, because it's convenient. And you get some sort of bonus out of grabbing the dedication up. And it allows you to take dedication feats. Typically, as well, you have to take 2 feats out of a dedication before you can do another archetype feat. Or sorry, 2 feats out of an archetype before you can do another dedication feat. Same difference. Before you can grab like another class to multi-class into. And typically for dedications, at least for classes, you do end up with kind of a halfy version of the class, which is fine. That's really what you want out of a character multiclassing, is you don't want the 2 classes next to each other. You want your class and then the idea of the second class worked into it. So I'm going to go alphabetical, as you would expect, starting with the Alchemist. Now, the Alchemist as a class is fine. I like it, actually. I'm one of the Alchemist apologists. I could do a guide on the Alchemist and make it sound really cool, but it is not the first edition Alchemist. And I would rather play other classes above it. First edition Alchemist is like one of my favorite classes ever. In anything, actually. But Alchemist, though it is cool and good in Pathfinder 2.0, it's not the same. And its role is not the role I want to play. But the multi-class, I think, is awesome. Because the multi-class basically gives you like the core of what you want out of the Alchemist in whatever class you're picking it up for. So when you grab the Alchemist up, you get trained in crafting, and you become trained in alchemical bombs. Magus, you're trained in martial weapons. You're trained in them anyway, and you're gonna get, funnily enough, better scaling off of hitting those bombs than an Alchemist because you get mastery with martial weapons. You also get alchemical crafting, and you get 4 additional first level formulas. So you start with 8 first level formulas in your formula book, and you have an advanced alchemy level of 1, and it doesn't increase. Unlike the Alchemist, where your advanced alchemy level is equal to your level. It's beyond the dedication feat. There's the basic and advanced concoctions for gaining Alchemist feats. Standard rules apply for the feats you can gain, where the basic feat always is you gain a 1st or 2nd level feat. Typically, it has the 4th level requirement. And then the advanced version of the feat is typically a 6th level requirement. And you can take another feat from that class, and it's going to be half level. So you have those, and then you have quick alchemy as an option, so you can do that whiz-bang quick alchemy to make an alchemical item from your infused reagents. Oh yeah, you have 1 infused reagent, by the way, because your infused reagents is equal to your level. Base game Alchemist is int mod plus level. So yeah, you'll have a number of infused reagents equal to your level, which is actually really good in the long run. So you have a constantly increasing number of alchemical items you can make in the morning, and then you can option to pick up quick alchemy those infused reagents. And then at 6 and Ooh, this might actually get bad. At 6 and at 12. Yeah. Might have to resize the window on the fly. You get Expert Alchemy and Master Alchemy. Expert Alchemy jumps your Advanced Alchemy level to 3. Then at 10th level, it becomes 5. Master Alchemy increases your Advanced Alchemy to 7. And then for each level gain beyond level 12, it increases it by 1. So you get a maximum of 15. Wait. 17. You get a maximum of 17. So a respectable level of Advanced Alchemy in the long run. Magus multiclassing the Alchemist, there are 2 reasons to do it in my mind. The first is to get elixirs. Because you'll get all of the mutagens, you'll get all of the elixirs of life, you get those dark vision elixirs. You basically get a ton of utility added to any version of the Magus. Any Magus can pick up Alchemist and get an advantage out of it, because it gives you another resource you can use for utility purposes in addition to your spells. The other thing is if you're a Starlit Span Magus and can do ranged spell strikes, you can spell strike a bomb. Now, it's going to be a 3-round action because you have to interact to pull the bomb out, and then you do your strike with it, which is spell striking. I don't see any rule that says you can't do that, because a bomb is essentially a martial weapon. It's a thrown weapon. Starlit Span specifically calls out thrown weapons. Ergo, spell strike a bomb. Granted, bomb's range is like 20 feet, so it's not exactly a super long-range weapon, but you can pick up Far Lobber if you really want more range. But to me, the bombs, especially with your cantrips attached to it, are just better cantrips. And then you can spell strike like a fireball if you really, really want to. And to me, this is kind of giving the feeling of the first edition Alchemist, which was more of an arcane character. Because you actually had an entire section in first edition on the Alchemist called extracts, which were like pseudo spells where there were a spell effect that you gained by drinking something. And as an example, one of them was fire breath. So you would drink the extract of fire breath and do a cone of fire damage. And that's kind of how I feel view spell striking a bomb a little bit, is you get the magic effect off of this special chemical concoction. So yeah, I really like the Alchemist as a multi-class, and I really like it as a Magus. And you're pretty much going to auto meet the prerequisite of 14 int for that. And yeah, the other note is that it neatly fits into the Magus, pretty much any Magus you want to build, because Expert Alchemy's at 6, Master Alchemy's at 12, so you're 2, 6, and 12. Sparkling Charge, you need level 4 open. That leaves level 8 open for like standby spell. You leave level 10 open if you want to get Sustaining Steel, if you're an Expert Iron, or Meteoric Spell Strike to add that to your spell striking bombs. You have those open. And then yeah, it leaves 14 open, which is the most important level to me in the Magus tree for Arcane Shroud. Can't stop talking about that feat. So yeah, all around, Alchemist is a very good archetype for the Magus. So Cleric. Cleric is a weird one. 14 Wisdom might be a little high to get at 2nd level. You might have to wait till later. But it's not impossible to get. Because remember, Wisdom is attached to Perception, which is your most common initiative roll. So you might want, high Wisdom as a Magus to go first. Meeting it's not impossible, like I said. You might end up dropping your int down to 14, and you're pretty much choosing strength or dex already, and maybe your con might take a little bit of, but it's doable, is what I'm saying. And you're jumping over here for 2 things. The first is spellcasting. So at 4, there's basic cleric spellcasting. 12 is expert. 18 is advanced. You do need to keep track of your master or your religion training ranks. So you need master and legendary and religion for Wow, it really doesn't zoom these in very well, does it? Oh wait, if I zoom in further, nope. Nope, can't do it. Huh. All right, we're doing it live. We have to do a slight change to the monitor where we do one of these. Yeah, that should cover. Like, I can read the text at the bottom if it's something we have to get to at the. Why are you blinking at me? Anyway, yeah, just to show the prereqs. So yeah, you do need the legendary religion in order to get your last chunk of cleric spellcasting. So that opens up the divine list to you, and you get all of the support that provides, and you'll get the slots for it, because you can also, if you really want a lot of slots, you can get divine breath. The other reason you come here is we're going to go to cleric feat, and then domain initiate. It's not in here. List of domains are found here. I swear this is worth it, kind of. Fire Ray. So, the other reason to come to the Cleric is for Fire Ray, which is a focus spell that gives you a focus spell damage spell, which you can spell strike with. That has better scaling, or equal scaling, to Shocking Grasp. Pretty good, actually. It's almost really worth it to do it, too, because it's 2d6 fire damage that scales on a 2d6, which is equivalent to Scorching Ray. And it adds the persistent damage on no matter what, whenever you critically succeed, and that scales as well. So it actually technically scales a little better with the persistent damage than Shocking Grasp. You'll still probably work Shocking Grasp in, but this is essentially once per combat, possibly twice, because you'll have 2 focus points from it, because you're a magus, you get 1 for free anyways. Yeah, you get to set your sword on fire and whack with it, or use it as its actual 60-foot range. There are actually a couple other domains like that too. Like I think the Earth domain has Stone Lance, which is a later on feat that you can only get at like 8th level. I don't remember when the Advanced Domain Initiate is, but there are domains that have attack spells that you can spell strike with, and it does give you support spells with the Divine list. Yeah, and you can leave your Wisdom at 14 from there on out if you really want to. Because, I mean, you're not going to worry about checks, honestly. You're probably going to use a lot of spells that are for healing and buffing out of that list. But yeah, it's, as unlikely as it sounds, a really solid multi-class to go from Magus to Cleric. I will also put a note here that Druid similarly works, but you have to keep an anathema in mind, where if you wear metal armor, you've betrayed being a Druid, and you lose your druidic abilities. But, yeah, Druid has a similar thing going on where you can pick up some domains that have attack spells and use those. Next up is Investigator. And Investigator is a really, really good multi-class archetype for the mages. Possibly the best. You could debate that. There's probably 3 that are quote-unquote the best, depending on how you look at it. So with the Investigator archetype, your dedication, you get the on the case and, the pursue a lead activity and the clue in reaction, which is fine. You get trained in society and another skill of your choice, which is fine. You get 2 skill trainings. But the real reason to hop over here is at 4th level, Investigator Stratagem. You play out battles in your head, allowing you to strike when the time is right. You gain the Devise a Stratagem action. However, I see what you're saying, Sino. Stop distracting me. Also, Magus jumping to Investigator isn't sus. Observe. So, you gain the Devise a Stratagem action. However, when you substitute its result for your attack roll, you can't use your Intelligence modifier in place of your Strength or Dex modifier. You also can't use the Intelligence modifier in other rolls from abilities that expand Devise a Stratagem, such as Athletic Strategist. So, Devise a Stratagem in the default Investigator mode is you spend an action and you roll a d20. That d20, if you strike later in that same turn, you have to use that roll for the strike. That's also what Devise a Stratagem will say right here. In the default version, you trade out your Strength or Dex modifier for your Int modifier if your strike is using an Agile or Finesse melee weapon, Agile or Finesse unarmed attack, or a ranged weapon, and if it's thrown, it needs Agile or Finesse on the weapon, or if you're using a sap. You don't get to have this section. You don't get to trade your Int modifier in. But Devise a Stratagem is incredibly good for spell strikes. Because spell strikes, remember, they're kind of like a YOLO throw it in there attack, right? Because you got to spend 2 actions. You're potentially spending a spell slot. And if you miss, you lose an attack, possibly a spell slot. And it feels real bad, man. Well, with the Investigator multiclass, you get Devise a Stratagem, which means you can spend an extra action, predict that roll ahead, and be like, oh, I'm going to roll an 18? Hell yeah, I'm going to Spell Strike. That's possibly a crit even. You roll a 3, you're like, okay, I'm not gonna swing this turn. Instead, I will cast Shield, and I will Recall Knowledge. I will cast Shield, and I'll use Battle Medicine. I will raise my shield. You know, if you're a Sparkling Targe, you can add that in as an option. Or you can cast a spell that doesn't have, you know, an attack part. So you can throw out that Fireball if you just want to throw out a Fireball. So what this adds in is an incredible tactical boon for your character where, you know, it can really help you just pinpoint those spell strikes in. It's a very powerful ability to add to the Magus. Additionally, you can throw in the Master Spotter ability. So you get Master Rank Perception, which is super handy. Helps a lot with your initiative rolls. And you get Skill Mastery, where you can basically get a bunch of skills up to master level, opening up skill feats if you so desire. So yeah, you can become a really potent skiller with this archetype. The feats, probably don't recommend the Investigator feats. A lot of them are oriented towards the more flavorful things you do as the Investigator, and you can't take advantage of like alchemical sciences or the battle medicine bonuses the class has, really. So yeah, the feats are kind of ho-hum, but you know, skill mastery is really nice to get, and then master and perception at 12 because your perception is gross and not great. But Devise a Stratagem, even if you're only picking this up, it's totally worth it. Hell, I could even see doing another archetype, grabbing the 2 feats up, and then later on, just Investigator dedication, Devise a Stratagem. Yeah, it really, really solid. And yeah, I could even see doing like grab the dedication, grab Devise a Stratagem, grab a whatever feat, jump to another multi-class. There's a lot you can do with the Investigator. And hey, Sino. I should do a build at the end of this, honestly. Thanks for giving me that idea. I gotta go down here in my outline and go part 8, do a build. I might do my main Magus build. We'll see. Because it applies a lot of what I talk about here. So next up, this is another potential for best Magus multiclass. It's actually one of the best multi-classes in the entire game, too. The Psychic from the recently released Dark Archive. Occult Caster. When you pick it up, you can go for the 14 int easily. You become trained in occultism or another skill, so you get a skill training out of it. You basically are going to be able to cast psychic spells, but you can't unleash your psyche or anything like that. So you get a conscious mind, so you get to choose one of those cantrip groups to pick a cantrip from. So you get the side cantrip version of it, and you get a focus point. So you'll have 2 focus points right out of the gate. And, well, level 2. Technically out of the gate if you're an ancient elf, but I digress. You get your side cantrip, so you get the enhanced cantrip, and you can amp it up. So my go-to here, and I think the one that a lot of people are talking about with the Magus, is the, did I not write the name down? The conscious mind for the tangible dream. You can grab tangible dream up to get the enhanced shield, which is just really handy to have. And then at 6th level, you can grab up the side development feat to grab the imaginary weapon cantrip. Now, imaginary weapon is a cantrip that deals d8s. So automatically it's your best cantrip for damage. It's better than Gouging Claw, and it's bludgeoning or slashing. When you amp up imaginary weapon... Oh, you also get another focus point here too. So you have your 3 focus points. When you amp up imaginary weapon, the amped heighten part of it, instead of doing 1d8 per heighten, it's 2d8 per heighten. So it deals a lot of damage. Like, you probably don't even need to worry about Shocking Grasp at that point. So you can just go like full tilt on your utility spells with the Magus that's jumped to Psychic. The other advantage is at 8th level you can grab Spell Swipe, which lets you hit 2 adjacent creatures with a Spell Strike, right? And Imaginary Weapon, when you amp it up, it lets you hit 2 creatures. But if you're spell striking with it, you can't do the 2 creatures. You have to choose to hit one or the other. Or you can only hit one. You still get the amp damage, but you can only hit one. With Spell Swipe at 8th level, 2 adjacent creatures you can delete with Imaginary Weapon when you amp it up. Because you get the double d8s from the heightening. You get your weapon damageable targets. It's a good hit. It does require you to be level 8 to get completely online. Still, though, even that enhanced shield until level 6 is very handy to have, especially for Sparkling Targe, because that gives you the ampable shield. Which, yes, there's a sustain action in there to keep it going through its duration. But, like, if you emergency Targe it, you can have that shield and be like, okay, I don't need the shield block with it, and just let it go away. Or you can sustain it, or cast it at the end of your turn as your oneer, right? And then something attacks you, you can just break all 3 layers and reduce that damage by a lot with the shield block. So there's a lot of tactical options in that shield. And then, of course, Imaginary Weapon, the big payoff at 6. So super good there. You can also go for Oscillating Wave to get the Enhanced Produce Flame, and it's D12s. Looking at it real quick. Yeah, D12s for melee. And Ray of Frost also gets D10s, which is still respectable. But yeah, you actually have a lot of options here to add in spike damage cantrips from this class. And that's kind of not all, because you also can pick up the spellcasting here. So the basic psychic spellcasting at 4, expert at 12, master at 18. That just lets you get more spell slots as a magus, which is super handy. Now, the feats for the class, they're a mixed bag. They're not terrible, though. If you get the basic thought form out of the way, your advanced thought form, you can go for Psi Strikes for extra mental damage. Or you can go for Parallel Breakthrough, which lets you get another Psi Cantrip. And it can be any Psi Cantrip from the first level set, including Warp Step. So you can get the Psi Cantrip version of Warp Step, so you can spend that focus point to do a single action double move teleport, which is great for anyone? Magus' action economy, because then you get that, funk, funk, teleport, and then you spell strike. So yeah, it's all around a great, like on its own, like any class, it's great for any class. It's super great for the mages. Like I said, it's potentially best archetype you could go to for the class. It's just, the cantrips just mesh so well with what the magus wants to do. And imaginary weapon is even on point. It's very Carian Slicer, Carian Greatsword, Carian Grandeur. So yeah, it's also thematically lines up very nicely. All right, the Rogue. So the Rogue, not exactly a standard option. 14 decks, so you're going to be leading on this with like a more Laughing Shadow maybe Magus. Maybe Starlit Span to some degree. The point for me mentioning this is in a similar vein to why I mentioned the Investigator. You get Sneak Attacker for that extra bit of damage, but it's only an extra d6, which is the problem. But you get, evasiveness, so you get those master reflex saves, which is your weak save, and you have the skill feats too. So I am mentioning that only for that reason. Is it's kind of like a worse Investigator, but different, but it's not bad. So just throwing out there, Rogue, you can actually get some benefit out of it. It is essentially Investigator without the stratagem to me. But yeah, you can do it also for flavor purposes on Laughing Shadow. So, the Vivivitch. The Witch and the Wizard are candidates for very high on the bestness list, right? I don't like saying something's the best or tiering something out, but the Witch is really good for the mages. Now, you do have to manage a familiar in addition to your spellbook, so there's that. But there are ways to mitigate whatever negatives that a familiar brings, and it brings a ton of positives too, like, recharging spell slots in a more advanced familiars and recharging focus points, which you use a lot of, presumably. And yeah, it's a familiar. It has all the advantages and disadvantages of a familiar. And yours isn't going to be as powerful as a witch's, but still, it's a familiar. So yeah, it's a familiar. You gain a patron. So when you choose a patron, that also gives you the tradition, but you don't get any effects from it. You get access to that spell list, so you can get access to Occult, Primal, or Divine through this class. And you get training in a skill. So you get your familiar, the cantrip, the patron, which is access to that tradition. So you get the spell casting options for basic spell casting at 4, expert at 12, master at 18, and you get breadth in there as well. Oh, by the way, psychic does not have the breadth feat. So you have to keep that in mind. If you want a lot more spell slots, you won't get a lot of slots. You'll only get the default 1 per level up to 8. 7. 8? Whatever. Look it up, James. You got the thing right here. 8. So, one of the main reasons to come to the Witch is the basic lesson. And the reason we're going to the basic lessons is for the lesson of life, which has the life boost focus spell. You get a focus point out of it too, which is handy to have for your conflict spells. But life boost. For 4 rounds, temporarily bolster the target's vitality. The target gains fast healing equal to double the spell's level. Fast healing means you regain that amount of hit points every round for those 4 rounds. So even at 2nd or 4th level, when you'd get this, that's probably focus 2. So that is 4 hit points per round for 4 rounds. So 16 hit points. Not an insignificant heal, honestly. And for a Magus who is presumably front rowing and mixing it up, you can do life boost to give yourself some sustain. Which, by the way, thematically to me really works if you're playing like a Dark Knight, an extra Iron Magus, where you got that big old 2-hander and you're maybe doing some, you got your temporary hit points, you're sustaining, you got life boosting. So you're just sitting there like, I still got 1 hit point left. I still got 1 hit. Like, you can just sit there and tank through stuff with the fast healing and sustaining steel and extra iron abilities. So yeah, there's a lot going on with the Witch like that, where you have the focus spells and the extra spell slots. So all around, it's really good at boosting what the Magus does. And we'll go right to Wizard on that thought, because the Wizard basically is going to take what you're doing and make you better at it. So when I say Investigator's possibly the best, or Psychic is possibly the best, well, Wizard is possibly the best too, because it just gives you more of what you do. It gives you more spell slots. That's straight up why you're going to Wizard, is you get 1 to 8, and then you can possibly get additional slots on top of that with the Arcane Breadth. So yeah, like, not much else to say. The Wizard goes Spellbook, so you have your Spellbook already. You get 4 additional cantrips. You get 2 additional you can prepare, so you have 7 in total. You can option for the school spell, which is hit or miss based on the school. You can go for Wizard Feats if you want, like Bespell Weapon, which is thematically on point for you. More damage on your swings from spell casting. You activate it as a free action. I mentioned Size Strikes before. It's the same deal. But yeah, I think it's all around just it's a simple thing, but it's really, really solidly good. And there's apparently a lot of Adventure Path level 20 feats for them. I don't know what they do, and I don't care to look because they're rare. But yeah, just, I don't think there's much more to say. It's the Wizard. It gives you more Magus abilities, essentially. And yeah, that's the classes I really like. So next part is going to be the other multi-classes. I'm writing a time down. For the non-class archetypes, and that should go, this actually went quicker than I thought, so I think I'm just going to do those in the same session. See if I can't bang them out in the 30 again. But yeah, that's going to be this part, and next part is another round of multi-classes, and these are going to be way different. So stay tuned. All right, David Rogers Games. See you later.